Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Hey everybody, this is Jason Bahamundi coming to you from our Fireside Chat. We are into our 110th episode. Amazing to be talking about numbers that high for something that we didn't expect to even happen a couple of years ago. Today we have a very special guest. I'll be talking with Dr. Amy Gargin, who is a mother of two. She is a runner, a climber, a triathlete who is also a pelvic health PT and a running coach. So her career in tennis was coming to an end and she needed to keep those competitive juices flowing, and running was the answer. So join me in welcoming Dr. Amy to our show. Hey, Amy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am pretty good. Hopefully I didn't botch that introduction too bad.
No, that was perfect.
Awesome. So pardon me, where my studio is too loud here, so I had to adjust the volume there. Anyway, so Amy, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who may not know, Amy has written for us. Her first article is live on our site today. You can go check it out. But one of the things I want to talk to you about first, Amy, is sort of going from tennis player to runner and getting a little bit of background on your athletic career as you transitioned out of tennis and into running. Give us a little insight into that so people can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so I played competitive tennis since the age of 8. Really, age 11 is when it started becoming more like traveling to different states and different tournaments. And then I was able to play tennis in college, Division I at Northwestern State University in Louisiana, which is where I'm from. Played 3 years, and then December of my senior year. So those that don't know much about tennis, the spring season is our main season. So December of my senior year, I had a career-ending hip surgery. I had a labral tear that was repaired. Not career-ending because of the severity of the surgery, but just the timing of it. Because I also got into physical therapy school at that time, and generally you don't decline physical therapy school whenever you get in. So I still have 1 more year of eligibility. Who knows?
Make that comeback.
Just kidding. That's not going to happen. But yeah, starting that, I needed something to keep competing with something, with anything, right? So that's when running started to appear in my life. And I had 2 really good friends in PT school who ran in college. So we had all run together, and that's when I did my first half marathon.
So I don't know much about playing tennis at the competitive level, but I did play the other major sports in the US, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, and played in high school. And one of the things that I vividly remember was that running was a punishment. And I'd always think to myself, like, look at these people running around the track. Why are you doing that for fun? Like this, like, I don't want to do this. Why are you doing it? Was running sort of a punishment for tennis if you didn't do something well back in your high school and college days?
It was definitely punishment. Yeah, we would run suicides. I mean, it's similar to like basketball suicides. I'm sure most people are familiar with that, but you like touch each line on the court. And no one wanted to do that. Yet here we are paying people to now run much longer.
Right. And that's what brings me to my next question. Like, so when you transition from tennis to running and paying to run, as you say, what was that like at the beginning? Was it like, why am I doing this? Like, I remember hating this during tennis, or was it, hey, it's a physical activity. I've been participating in a physical activity like tennis for so long. This will be something else to just keep me going.
Definitely ups and downs, I would say. There were times, especially training for that first race, where I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this. Like, how do people do this? But you just become addicted to it, which sounds bad, but I guess there are worse things to be addicted to, right? So
how long after getting into running did your first race take place?
A few months probably.
Can't take the competitor out of you, huh?
Well, I signed up for the half marathon, and that was like the goal. So that's what started really everything. I like for some reason wasn't interested in starting with a 5K or a 10K. I wanted something that seemed almost unreachable for me at that time. And so there's a half marathon that was close to where we went to PT school. Uh, it was in November. Going to be a nice, cool race. So that's what we
Was
did.
it? Most people are like, oh, it's going to be great weather. And then on race day, it's the exact opposite of what
It
they
was.
expected.
No, it was pretty good weather. It was like slightly colder maybe than we anticipated, but nothing crazy. It was like in the, I don't know, 40s maybe, high 40s.
And after you crossed the finish line of that first race, was the bug, the virus of running in you, and you were like, you know what, when's the next race happening? Or was it, that was cool, let me go do something else?
I was like, I'm never doing this again. 2 weeks later, I probably signed up for the next one. That's the rule, right? Like give it 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you hear stories of people having like horrendous races and they feel the need to have a redemption event and are registering almost immediately for the next one. For me, it's got to be like a couple of weeks at the soonest before I press register on another button, because you just went through a whole training block, right?
Yeah.
And it's difficult. And to try to balance life, work. In your case, you have 2 kids, and I'd like to talk about that in a minute, but trying to balance all of that stuff and the stress that you go through, and then to think to yourself, I'm going to go do that again immediately. Some days I'm like, why would we?
Yeah, no, I feel that way definitely sometimes, especially when it's super busy, like with the kids stuff, and especially in the winter. The winter doesn't, I don't do well with the winter because now I'm in the Northeast, and like I said, I grew up in Louisiana, and the cold and the dark is not for me.
Yeah,
But we're making
we
it.
were just talking about that in the green room before we came on live, and I live on the West Coast, and it just stays light out here forever. Meanwhile, the sun breaks over there at like 3 a.m. It seemed like when I lived on the East Coast, and the days seem long in that sense on that side. So, talk to me a little bit about training. You were training for this half marathon while you were going through PT school, correct?
Yes, I did 2 half marathons while going through PT school, which I feel like that was appropriate because we would spend so much time, studying and um, yeah, just like preparing for tests and everything. It was almost like a nice reset of your mind, so you could be kind of focused and ready to take in whatever lesson was next. And like I said, I had those 2 good friends that are still very good friends now. And that was just something that we did together. That was fun. It was difficult in a different way to juggle um, studying and juggling running. But looking back, I would say that was easy because now it's a lot more difficult.
Running was sort of like a stress relief from school for you in that moment then?
Yeah, and a chance to like get outside
Yeah.
because if you're studying for hours, you're crammed generally inside. So
And because I've never been to PT school, I'm going to ask a naive question. So as you're running and you're feeling like little niggles, are you like, what was that? What was that? What was that? And going and researching it?
I probably had days like that. Yeah, I would say so. But I try to like turn that part of my brain off when I'm running.
For those of you that are just joining us on Instagram, X, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and if you have questions for Amy, please make sure to drop them into the chat box. We'll make sure we address them with Amy as we go through the conversation. So you run 2 half marathons going through PT school, you graduate, and now you're a veteran of running at this point. Is running half marathons something that you're like, I'd like to keep doing this? Or were you the kind of person that's like, what's the next challenge? Marathon, triathlon? Were you looking for the next thing to do?
I liked the half marathon distance. I still like that distance a lot. That might be my favorite. So my husband and I did one more together at right before I graduated from PT school. So that's now April of 2018. So we did one more, and then after that, I was like, "What's next?" I think I like got a time that I was relatively happy with. So that's when I was like, "Okay, I feel pretty good with this. Let's try to see what's next."
One of our hosts of our other podcast on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, Joe Harden, just comment, "I'd be too afraid to know about the niggles and stuff going through PT school." And what was that issue? What was my hamstring and trying to diagnose yourself along the way? I agree with you, Joe. I'd feel the same way.
Yeah,
So
analysis paralysis,
yeah,
you know about
exactly.
that.
So now, let me ask you this question before I go to the next one then. Do you have friends and family that are like, hey, I've got this little thing happening in my hip. What do you think it is? And meanwhile, they're like trying to have you diagnose it from, thousands of miles away.
Yes, that happens all the time. I try my best usually, unless it's like a frequent, offender, but I try my best.
It's gotta be impossible though, right? Like
Mhm,
everybody's got a different type of body, different things, and you're also not getting the full story, I'm presuming, right? It's like, hey, I ran 10 miles yesterday and my
mhm.
ankle hurts. Meanwhile, they didn't tell you that they ran 30 miles the day before, I'm sure.
Yeah, so my husband is notorious for this, actually. He's like, "Can you please look at my ankle? Can you look at my back?" And I'm like, "I just got home from working like 10 hours. I don't want to do that. I wanna eat dinner."
We're gonna
So
have to get him an invoice. Hey, if you need me to do this, here's my
yeah,
invoice.
exactly.
So we talked about going and finding the next challenge. What was the next challenge after being somewhat satisfied with a half marathon time in that moment?
Mhm. So, I had a pretty busy summer, the summer of 2018. I graduated PT school. 3 of my really good friends got married all 3 weekends in a row in 3 different time zones. That was a good time.
Wow.
Another friend got married in October, and then I also, became pregnant in fall of 2018, and then we had our first daughter in June of 2019. So, no races during that time. I was, like, active still, but it's not like I was, like, training for, a marathon or something like that. So gave myself a good amount of time to recover, and then oddly enough, my next race was a 50K in 2020.
Skipped right over the marathon.
Okay, but because I have a reason. 2020 was COVID, right? And the local trail running club was doing virtual races. So I wanted to support them, and there were no races going on. And 50K, I think at that time was like the smallest one that they offered. So
So I know that you've eventually found your way into triathlon, but tell the audience how you went from, half marathon, 50K, skipping over the marathon to finding your way to triathlon. What was the 50K? I don't want to use the word not or words not challenging enough because I'm sure it was, but was there something else that drew you to triathlon as being the next evolution of your endurance sports quote unquote career?
Um, during COVID, I watched a lot of YouTube. So I still do. I enjoy watching like endurance athletes YouTube. So naturally, I came across that triathlon life, and that's really what got me like into it. I had swam before, but not competitively or anything like that. Same with biking. I had a bike like my whole life, but nothing competitive. So I liked the community that triathlon provided, so it seemed from the videos, and that's what kind of piqued my interest.
So triathlon, and no, I'm no stranger to it, having finished 8 Ironman races, the amount of time that it takes to swim, bike, and run, to strength train, to recover, to work, to being a mother of two for you, is a lot. How do you
Mhm.
manage to balance all of those things? And even if it's not triathlon, even if it's, just a running race, how do you manage to balance all of these things? What tips or insight do you have for people in the audience who are trying to do all of this stuff themselves?
I think one thing that helps for me is I'll have like a training plan that I follow, right? But I really try to just think about it one day at a time. Like, this is what I'm doing today. This is what I'm doing right now. Because if I think about, oh, I have to do this tomorrow, I have to do this on Friday, I have to do, it's too much. So I just really try to take it one day at a time. I know that's like cliche to say one day at a time, but it's true. Like, if people are asking me like what I'm doing next month, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing today, and that's all I have for you.
Yeah, it's kind of, the cliche, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And
Mhm.
I think if you look at the enormity of a training plan, you will get overwhelmed and it can create anxiety and stress. But I think if you know, like, okay, tomorrow I'm swimming in the morning and running in the afternoon, let's say if you're doing a double, or I'm just swimming in the morning, then that becomes a lot more feasible and you're
Mhm.
able to handle that in the moment. And then as you go through the plan, you might think to yourself, oh, I can add this here or add that there and move things around as you see fit. You are a run coach. And so the first question I'm going to ask you about this, though, is when you're working with athletes, how do you take into account their work-life balance? And how do you work with them on their schedules? And then how do you work on your own schedule in that scenario if you're coaching yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one way I help the athletes is whenever we have like our initial intake, that's the first thing that we're going to discuss. Like, what are your goals and what kind of time commitment do you want to or can you give to this, right? So that's going to help me kind of plan everything. And then there are days where it's like, okay, I go into the office this day, so this needs to be like a short day, or I work from home these days, something like that. That's the number one thing to help navigate that. And then same for me, like I have days that I know are maybe a little bit lighter or a little bit more open, and I just plan accordingly. Like, those are going to be my bigger workout days. Uh, I know traffic on Fridays, for example, coming home from the clinic is they're terrible, so that's never going to be a big workout day for me.
Yeah, I think it's so important to know all of those outside factors and obstacles as you're going through the process. I know a lot of people are creatures of habit, right? And so Monday's a rest day and Tuesday is a swim day and so on and so forth. But if you have a job, employment like you do as a PT, schedules have to match when the patients are available in some instances. And so I imagine that there are some days where you'll have a meeting on a Tuesday, let's say, or an appointment, I should say, that you
Mhm.
wouldn't have had the week prior just because now it fits. And so does that make it a little bit even more difficult for you to juggle when you don't have set scenarios for when appointments are being made?
It does make it a little bit more difficult, more so like the kids' schedule,
Okay.
because like they're sick every other week, it seems, with daycare. So that that I would say is the most difficult part, is trying to juggle that. But I know, like, for example, now with the marathon coming up in October that I'm doing, I have like weekly mileage that I want to hit, so it can be adjusted in that way. So like today, for example, if my older one like got sick, I knew I could move today's workout to tomorrow or something like that.
Awesome. We just were joined by Mike DiGiovanni, who most recently completed the Leona Divide 100 mile. Congratulations, Mike. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. One of the things that we talked about in the green room was that your husband is also an endurance athlete, and he's currently on a run streak for this year of 2024. So we're about 5 months and a week into this. How does that impact your training as well as family life when you now have a second training schedule to
Hmm.
balance? And are you guys registering for races to do together, or are you on separate schedules because you have different desires and goals and working around that whole juggling act?
So we've done both. We've done like we did the Philadelphia Marathon together in November. We did 70.3 Atlantic City together. But I think this year we're trying to do separate races so we can peak at different times. Because it does get difficult when we both have to have very long days or very long workouts on the weekends, is when most people who are working maximize that time. So for this year, we're trying to do separate races and see how that goes. But yeah, we just have to plan our schedules accordingly to prioritize each other's fitness. And I think it's helpful that he does the races too, because he knows how important it is and what it takes to be in a good spot for the race that you're trying to complete.
What's an event that you have your eye on? Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but one of those, shiny object events that you'd like to participate in.
I have 3 shiny object events.
Let's hear them.
Kona is one of
Yeah.
them. I'd love to qualify one day.
So
Very
where
far
are
off
you
from
gonna, where
that.
do you want to qualify at?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. Somewhere flat, that's for sure. Somewhere that has a flat bike.
I got 2 for you. I just interviewed Kirsten. What's her name? Kirsten Brady Lewis, and she's racing Ironman California later this year. She told me that the bike course there is really flat, and I've raced at Ironman Maryland, which is a lot closer to you, that is super flat on the bike course. As a matter of fact, they have one section that they spray paint hill on, and it's literally like a pedal stroke and a half. It's just like getting up over this little bridge. So if you're looking for
That's the course for me.
Yeah, both of those would be great courses. Now, Ironman California is in Sacramento I think it's November, and it is a river swim, the bay, obviously for Maryland. And then she said that the run was pretty good at Ironman California, and at Maryland it's hot and humid, as you know, living on the East Coast now. So you pick your poison on that one. Do I fly all the way across the country to race, or do I deal with the heat and humidity? But both have extremely flat bike courses. But anyway, so Kona is one. What are the other 2?
Yep. Boston Marathon. That might be number 1 right now, because I am trying to, I say that hesitantly, but trying to qualify for Boston coming up in October at the Wine Glass Marathon, which is flat.
That's in upstate New York, right?
Yeah, it's in Corning, New York.
Yes.
So it's supposed to be beautiful. So we'll see about that. And then Western States is the 3rd one.
And so then, in order to get into the lottery for Western States, do you have your eye on a 100-mile race that you would like to qualify at?
I don't. That's like last on the priority list, I would say. That's a little bit further down the road.
We're about a month away from that event taking place. It usually takes place like I think it's the last week in June. So that's coming up here real soon.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, having done the race myself, the pomp and circumstance that you hear about the event, it lives up to the hype in that scenario. And I think a large part of that, and this is going to lead to a question, is that it's a smaller event. 300, less than 400 people participate. I think 369 is the exact number that they have permit for. So when you're looking at events, are you the type of person that is looking for large audience, large pomp and circumstance type thing, or do you prefer smaller events, more intimate?
I think I like both. Like, for example, we just did a 5K this past weekend, and it was like a small local race, and that was fun in its own way. And my daughter did the kids race, my older daughter, so that was really cute and fun to watch. But the crowds get me hyped up. So I don't know if that's like the tennis player in me or what, but that really helps.
Did you play in front of really large crowds when you were playing tennis?
I wouldn't say they were like large crowds, but I definitely enjoyed when there were more people in the stands, like to interact with. Maybe because tennis is boring. I don't know.
I don't think tennis is boring. We should actually, what do we have, like about a month from Wimbledon happening?
Yeah, well, yeah, French Open's going on right now.
Yeah, I never got into the clay stuff. I never got into the French Open, but I just always loved Wimbledon. I don't know if the grass courts or the pomp and circumstance of, the all English lawn and tennis club, as they say, would always bring me in. I just loved watching Wimbledon. I grew up during the Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras years too, so that probably helped having Americans being able to win the event.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about your role as a PT. and really helping our audience here in this scenario. What are some of the things that you have seen from an injury perspective that you would say to yourself, that's fairly preventable if you would just do more of X? Are there injuries that are commonplace that us as everyday athletes, if we just do one or two things, could avoid being sidelined from those injuries?
Yeah, I mean, I think we as endurance athletes neglect mobility and probably a little bit of strength. So that in general would help most injuries, especially because we're running, we're cycling, we're doing all this forward motion, right? Um, Muscles need to move through their whole range, so you need to get like lateral movements in there, so side to side movements as well. Because if you just get used to doing the same repetitive pattern over and over again, your muscle gets used to that and it doesn't necessarily increase its strength anymore because it's not being challenged in different ways. But I specialize in orthopedics, but also pelvic health. And the number one thing that I would say is if you're postpartum, you should see a pelvic PT, because you go in for your 6-week checkup and you get cleared for everything. And for endurance athletes, that means I'm going to go for a run right now, and your body's not prepared for that because you just carried a baby for 9 months and you had a pretty traumatic delivery of that baby in some way, whether vaginal delivery or C-section. So you really need to rehab those muscles before you start running or doing any type of higher intensity exercises.
And is that where you're working with those mothers going through that process of strengthening that pelvic floor so that when they do resume running, it's not, a moment of, euphoria followed by a moment, a moment of, oh man, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah, that's what my business is for. I have an online remote coaching business. Like we said, I'm a running coach, but specifically catered to postpartum moms. So working on building up the necessary muscles to help prepare you to return to run.
I am going to be posting Amy's Calendly. If you are interested in scheduling some time to chat with her about your pelvic health, especially postpartum moms, make sure you check out her Calendly and schedule some time to talk with her. What can people expect if they make an appointment with you in those 30 minutes, to just kind of get acquainted with each other and so that they're prepared to bring any information and answer any questions you might have for them?
Yeah, I mean, that Calendly link that you're talking about is just a free connection call, 30 minutes, and we just discuss your current symptoms, your goals, anything like that. Also, I try to give you a little bit of something to take away, even if you're not going to move forward with the coaching program, but some little helpful tip to help you with whatever you may be dealing with.
So you mentioned that you get a clearance from a doctor after 6 weeks. What's the typical range? And I know everybody's going to be different. Some people recover faster, some people recover slower. But for the average person or average female, I should say, who's given birth, how quickly are they able to resume getting back to running? And I say it that way as opposed to getting back to training, because I think the term training has a lot of specificity to it when we talk about whatever distance we're training for, 5K, 100-miler, triathlon, but getting back to running and physical activity in that sense that won't set them back into sort of a rehab scenario that they might need because they got injured now.
Yeah. For the average person, generally speaking, obviously, like you said, everyone's different. You're going to want to wait 12 weeks before you start running. So 12 weeks after delivery. And that doesn't mean like do nothing for 12 weeks. That means ideally have like a structured rehab in order to prepare you for your first steps running. Because just one step of running, you're accepting 3 times your body weight of force. So that's a lot, especially for our pelvic floor muscles, which they lay at the base of our pelvis and help support the pelvic organs.
Does that time frame change with more kids? So if second kid, third kid, or is that typically standard regardless of the number of children a female may have had?
It's a typically standard timeline, but there are also, if you're coming to pelvic PT or you have some kind of structured rehab, you have to hit milestones. So some people could hit those milestones faster. Some people, it might take longer.
What are some examples of those milestones that they might have, that they will have to hit, as they progress through this process?
Some examples, you want to be able to walk for 30 minutes without symptoms. So that means no like urinary urgency, urinary leakage, no pelvic pain, pelvic heaviness, low back pain, hip pain. These are all symptoms of pelvic floor dysfunction. You want to be able to run in place, or I shouldn't say run in place, but like march in place, bounce up and down in place for 30 seconds. You want to be able to do, I believe it's 10 single leg squats on each leg. Those are a handful that I can think of off the top of my head.
I tell you, talking to you a number of times, and Pacer Physical Therapy, Juliana Galante, we've had on the show, and we've shared some of her articles about pelvic health. I don't think men understand. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
The process that women who have given birth have to go through to get back on their feet in terms of training. And if you are a male who has a wife who is a runner and you're planning to have children or have children, seriously check out Amy's content. Look at her article on our site. Follow her, because it will open up your mind. I didn't know anything about this. I don't have kids. But in talking to you and learning about this over the last, what amounts to 3+ years now, it really is an eye opener as to what the process is. And I use that phrase specifically because I don't think it's just a matter of wake up on Monday, do X, wake up on Tuesday, do Y, and all of a sudden everything is good. It's a process and there are setbacks. Would you agree? And if not, how would you phrase it? It's like training to train as you're going through this 12-week process before you actually start getting out there to a training plan type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like if you had, let's say, a knee surgery, right? Like, as soon as you get rid of the crutches, you're not going to go run, right? Like, you're going to keep working on the range of motion of your knee. You're going to work on making sure your quads can activate and all the surrounding muscles. It's just we can't see the pelvic floor muscles, so people forget about them. But it's standard of care actually in Europe and Canada to see a pelvic PT after you give birth. So hopefully that'll come here soon.
You hear that, legislatures? Let's get this going.
Yeah, we'll see.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
The next question I was going to ask you is about, we've talked about women and postpartum recovery and getting back, but what about men? Are there things that men can do? Are they known to have issues with their pelvic floor that there are exercises that they can work on and would be able to come see you as well to deal with those?
Yeah, I treat male pelvic health as well. And everyone has a pelvic floor. Most often, what happens is after prostate cancer, males have the surgery to remove the prostate, and then that results in very minimal bladder control. So same kind of process, you work on improving the awareness of the pelvic floor muscles and the strength of the pelvic floor muscles and the surrounding areas as well. But generally, triathletes can get some pelvic floor issues as well. Specifically pudendal neuralgia. So that's the irritation of the pudendal nerve, which supplies the genitals. And that can be compressed from sitting on a bike. So if you don't have a great bike fit and you get numbness tingling down your legs, that might be something to look into and to try to make sure you have a nice bike fit.
Let that be the first thing you hear, men, when you're like, I don't want to pay for a bike fit. The long-term cost is going to be greater than the short-term cost of getting a bike fit, in all honesty.
Yeah, likely.
Amy, you have been a fantastic guest. And before we jump into our rapid fire food questions, besides LinkedIn, where can people check you out and learn more about what you do to help them with their pelvic floor?
Instagram, definitely. My handle is at Amy Gargin, Gargin, DPT. So that's stands for Doctor of Physical Therapy. And then my business website, the remote coaching website, is ascensionpelvic.com. So ASCENSION pelvic.com.
Awesome. I don't think I asked you this, but is there a race on the calendar that we can root for you?
Yeah, my next one is the Wine Glass Marathon.
Oh, so that's the marathon that you're saying hopefully potentially qualify for Boston, but not sure, putting a caveat on there, is the next event.
It is the next event. I might consider doing like an Olympic triathlon over the summer if there's a local one, but that's definitely like the A race of the year.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we put that on our calendar so we can cheer you on when you head up to upstate New York to race. So are you ready for our rapid fire food questions?
Yes, always.
All right. So I don't know where this is going to go because you're originally from Louisiana, but you live on the East Coast now. So pineapple on pizza, is that a yay or a nay?
No.
Yes. We need more Dr. Amy's in our audience. More people to say no to pineapple on pizza.
No, I like just cheese is my preferred. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need anything more than that. It's perfect, right? Dough, sauce, cheese. That's it.
Yep.
You know, we've started asking this question about 2 years ago, and it's gotten to the point now where I can't help but laugh every time somebody sends us a picture of them eating pineapple on their pizza or not eating pineapple on their pizza. So any of you are in the audience who are pro pineapple or anti pineapple, send your images in. We love to see them. All right, next question. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
I am not a candy corn fan, so I guess I'm going to answer earwax.
Yeah, it's not a real candy, and I cannot for the life of me figure out how that company stays in business. Like, who's buying this stuff?
I think my husband likes candy corn, actually. He likes most candy, so
give him that invoice for taking care of his issues so that he can no longer spend money on candy corn then. Peeps. Are Peeps a real candy, or are they just marshmallow covered in glitter dust?
I also don't like Peeps. So,
yes!
But my husband loves Peeps. That's
oh
his
my
favorite.
Goodness, you have to talk to this guy. Does he put pineapple on pizza?
He does not, no.
Okay,
that's where he draws the line.
Red velvet cake. Is red velvet cake a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
I'm gonna say real flavor.
Oh,
real flavor for
no.
this one. Yes.
What about red velvet cake pulls you in?
I don't know. All of it. I like all of it. It's not my favorite flavor, but I'll eat it. That's for sure.
What's your favorite flavor of cake then?
Strawberry. Strawberry cake with strawberry icing.
Wow, I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
Might be a Southern thing. I'm not sure. Or something my mom made up. I don't know.
Like, I remember as a kid chasing the ice cream man, right, for the strawberry shortcake ice cream bar that you would get. Like, I remember that. Mm-hmm. That was amazing. There's a vegan place out here in LA that serves a strawberry shortcake cheesecake, and it tastes just like the ice cream bar that you got from the Good Humor Man. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would love that.
What is your favorite candy bar?
I'm not a big candy person.
No wonder Peeps been getting tossed in the trash then.
I mean, I guess I would say Hershey's. I don't know. I'm not a big.
Are you more of a savory fan then?
Yes, I would say so. I like salty things.
So like pretzels and chips?
Popcorn is number one.
Yes, popcorn number one. Absolutely, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got to be plain. Like, are you putting anything on it? Like, I've seen like ranch. There's
no, plain.
Yeah, like the tin, right? It comes with the cheese popcorn, the caramel popcorn, and the plain popcorn. I'm like, I don't want any of that stuff. Just give me the plain.
Just plain. Yep.
Are you a fan of movie popcorn when you get that, whatever they call it, butter? I know it's not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. So you're about to get on the spaceship and get blasted to Mars with Matt Damon, where you know you'll be eating nothing but sweet potatoes for the rest of your life. What's the last thing you're eating before you get blasted into outer space?
Man, that's a tough one. I might say pizza.
Yes.
Cheese pizza.
Yeah. I mean, how could you go wrong with that?
Yeah.
As long as it's New York cheese pizza, and don't anybody come at me with this Chicago stuff or Detroit stuff or New York style. Like that's the thing I laugh at the most. You know, I've lived in Texas, Washington, California, and they're like, it's New York style. I'm like, yeah, but it's not New York. Like it gotta be New York pizza.
Yeah, it wasn't made with the New York water, right?
That's right. Yes. Are you a fan of bagels made with New York water?
Yes, I am.
Favorite flavor of bagel?
Blueberry bagel.
Ooh. And what kind?
Yes.
Are you putting cream cheese or just toast and butter?
So if I'm really living it up, I'll put almond butter with cinnamon on top.
Oh, then you've basically made a blueberry pie.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you been to New York City for bagels?
Oh yeah. We live like 10 miles outside of New York City.
Awesome. Where's your favorite place to go for New York City bagels?
Oh, I don't know if I have like a specific place, but they're all so good.
For those of you listening, Tompkins Square Bagels. There's three locations now actually down there. One's on First, one's on Second, and I think the other one's like right outside Washington Square Park. So go check those out because they also have a cookie dough cream cheese that's phenomenal.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's phenomenal.
There's a place, my favorite bagel place. I'm sorry, is not in the city. It's in Northwest Jersey, out by my husband's parents. It's called A&B Bagels. Shout out A&B Bagels. It's delicious. They'll give you a bacon, egg, and cheese and put a hash brown in it.
Champion. There's also a place in Scarsdale for those of you that are in Westchester. It's on Garth Road. It's been probably 20 years since I've been there, but it's called Scarsdale Bagel, and it was some of the best bagels you could possibly find that wasn't in New York City either. Are you a cereal eater?
Sometimes.
So if you had to eat cereal, what's the box that you're pulling off the shelf first?
I like Special K Chocolatey Delight.
Nice. Very good. All right, last question for you before I let you go. Actually, well, you said you don't eat sweets, but do you have a favorite ice cream?
I'm gonna have to go strawberry again. I'm a big strawberry fan.
All right, last rapid fire food question. A tray of brownies just comes out of the oven. Are you going to the edge where you have that little bit of crust, or are you going straight to the center where it's a little bit more gooey?
I'm gonna be controversial and go to the middle.
Oh, that is controversial.
Cut out the center. Sorry.
Do you like nuts on your brownies?
No, I'm actually allergic to peanuts. So not that they all have to be peanuts, but I just prefer the plain.
And if you're gonna go a la mode, what's the ice cream topping you're putting on there?
Strawberry.
I love it. Do you like coffee?
I love coffee.
Okay,
it's one of the joys of my life.
Yes, agreed. So here's the trick for the next time there's a tray of brownies at your house. Take the centerpiece that you are so favored, drop it in the bottom of a mug, and then put coffee ice cream on top of it. And as the coffee ice cream melts, it creates a mocha in that mug for you that is just out of this world.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would love that.
Amy, thank you so much for joining us. If you joined us late on our live conversation with Dr. Amy Gargin, do not worry. It'll be on our Instagram page here in a moment, but it'll also be on our YouTube channel on Friday, as well as on our podcast within a week. Dr. Amy, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to chatting with you again and having your next article on our website real soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Have a great night.
You too.